right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's discussion on screen media composers. And while I'll be focusing more closely on film composers, some of these have also dabbled in both television shows and video games, and also documentaries when we look at some of them as well. But yes, so we're gonna look at these as a whole and how these screen media composers are able to, bring us into these cinematic worlds, whether it is in television, film, or in video games. So basically, starting off with this week, we have a couple lists. So we have a list on the top 10 film composers according to Hello Music Theory. And Hello Music Theory is a website about writing film music. So they're looking at it at a little bit of a different angle, but their top 10 includes John Williams. It also includes Hans Zimmer, Bernard Herrmann, Max Steiger. So we've got some that are currently not living, but still very iconic film composers. And we even have Thomas Newman, who is from a long line of his whole family of Newmans. You've heard of Alfred Newman, maybe, definitely Randy Newman. Yeah, they're all related. so we've got a great list of what they consider the top 10 film composers in the Hello Music Theory. It also goes over a great overview of each of the composers. So just it's quick, but it's a nice overview. And though this is only a top 10, it also features, as I said, from the past and currently. It only has one female on this list, which is kind of interesting. And that is the composer Rachel Portman. And Rachel Portman, she has composed and written music for over 200 films. She's also been part of smaller productions, but she is probably best known. She was the first woman to receive an Academy Award for Best Score for her score for the film Emma. And she's also done the score for Mona Lisa's Smile, Chocolate, The Legend of Bagger Vance, and then some. So I find that quite fascinating. Also, we have a Japanese film composer. He does mostly anime and films for studio. I'm sorry, for Studio Ghibli. We've got Joe Hisashi. I'm sure I just said it wrong, but Joe Hisashi, who is pretty prolific, especially for those that that like the films, especially his partnership with Hayao Miyazaki and his films. We also have Morricone on here, who recently died in the last year. And he's probably the best known for his spaghetti westerns, but he composed for many films, not just Italian films. And one of his last films was for Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. So we've got a great list. I didn't touch on everyone in that list, but make sure that you check that out. We also have another list of the 23 most exciting film composers working today. And they have Hans Zimmer as number one in this list. Of course, John Williams is in there. There's also Stephen Price, who has done work for he did Attack the Block and The World's End, both British films. He also did the score to Gravity, and he did give you the score pieces in Edgar Wright's Baby Driver, which was not much because mostly it's a mostly compilation score. We will be talking, of course, more about John Williams and Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor. It's kind of hard to see, you know. Okay, it's not quite Star Wars. It's Star Cats is what I'm wearing, but you get the idea. Johan Johansson, who passed away. He's one of my favorites. Bear McCreary, who's listed on here as one of the exciting composers. And one of the things about this 23 list also is the fact that some of these composers have also done television and video games. So McCreary, you might be more familiar with his work for The Walking Dead. So I'm not going to go through all of them. Howard Shore is one of your more traditional ones. Danny Elfman, who is known for his work with Tim Burton, and Alexander Desplat, who has worked with several directors, but his current collabs have been with Wes Anderson. Carter Burwell has done several films with the Coen brothers, and Johnny Greenwood has done several films with the other Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. So there's many more, and you know, a great list of fantastic composers that are creating work today. Now, the list of current TV composers, some of them do kind of cover the ground, and I just gave you an article for for those that were nominated for the Best Emmy for 2020. And some of these composers of television shows have also composed for film as well. So we have the composer for Succession. Ludwig Göransson did the Malodorian, but you might be more familiar with his Black Panther score. Martin Phipps for The Crown. Emil Massari for Homecoming. Daniel Pemberton for The Dark Crystal, and then Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor for The Watchmen. Also, Michael Abels for the show Bad Education, and Matt Morton for Apollo 11. So those are just really more contemporary ones, but there are, I mean, I didn't go into like the history of like, oh my gosh, is it Mark Post? Let's see. So, I want to make sure I get that right. Mark Post. No, it's not Mark Post. Let's see. American Hero. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh well. So I'll figure it out. So let's see. Hill Street Blues. I know you're like, what are you doing? Hill Street Blues theme song. Mike Post. I said Mark Post. So Mike Post, he did several television scores. So he did Hill Street Blues, The Rockford Files. He also did Magnum PI. So Mike Post for a while was like the go-to guy for for TV, not only theme songs, but also for for composing for television. So he also gave us the Law and Order music. Cha-chung! So yeah. So thank you, Mike Post, for giving us all of that. I probably should have done a little bit about him because I grew up on his music. All right. So that's me being totally geeky on Mike Post. Then we have the top 10 video game composers from Hello Music Theory. And many of the composers are Japanese composers for many of the video games. But we do have the composer for Silent Hill on this list. And there are a few Americans and Brits in here as composers. But the one that I think is, and there's a few females, Yoko Shimomura. She is known for her score for Kingdom Hearts, and then she also has her own company for doing video game scores. So she also has worked on some Super Mario games, and also Final Fantasy. It looks like Final Fantasy 15. But Koji Kondo is probably the most iconic of film composers. If you played any sort of Nintendo games, you are familiar with Koji Kondo and his works. So Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, that's all his work. And there are many others, so please check out that list. Okay, so I'm going to let you check those out, and then we will get into John Williams. So check out those lists, and then we'll get into John Williams. Ta-da! All right. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, all John Williams. So we have a couple videos on John Williams here. John Williams is probably one of the best known contemporary composers of film, still working today. And he came about at a time when, for the most part, the traditional romantic orchestral score was out of fashion in once we started getting into the late 60s and into the 70s. But all of a sudden, these film school brats, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, decided that they wanted a composer that also featured something that was more orchestral. So this is where John Williams comes back into play. And he was, creating music, and he actually wasn't initially a classical composer by trade, but he became one, and probably his closest collaborations came with his scores with Steven Spielberg. So the list is very long. He actually started with Sugarland Express, one of Spielberg's first films. He also, John Williams also did the score to Jaws, and that's probably where many people first experienced John Williams, at least on a huge scale. Close Encounters, E.T., Schindler's List. The list, most of Spielberg's film output, John Williams has scored it. I think only 3 of Spielberg's films was not scored by John Williams. And so, you know, it's a pretty close collaboration. The Indiana Jones movies, uh, and then we've got Star Wars. And most of the Star Wars films have been composed by John Williams, though the more current ones have used some of his themes, but there's been a few other that have done the complete score to the latter films. But they are probably some of the most iconic. So we have a video called Cinema's Mastro, The Legacy of John Williams. And so this is a really great overview of his career and him as a composer and his contribution to film music. We also have a from earlier this year, the Sunday morning TV show did a spotlight on John Williams, and so it was how he goes back to his summer place, and this is where he has sketched out some of his most famous pieces everywhere, from some of the Star Wars pieces to even early sketches for Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter. So John Williams at his summer place, and then he also would conduct some of his own music. So it's a great little video about not only John Williams's past, but what he was just currently doing, on his summer vacation. So definitely, I want you to check that out. And finally, so I'm gonna go, just kind of explain everything a little bit, and then you can watch that, all the John Williams stuff all together. And then the third video that we have are the 10 best John Williams scores. And so this video, though, it could be kind of biased. You might have a different take on why John Williams, might have other scores that are better, but many of the ones are the ones that I've mentioned. And we also get to hear these scores. So this is a really nice video that not only it gives you a nice taste, especially if you're not familiar with John Williams, which is, I would think, is crazy. And by this point, you have at least heard the clips that I've played for you that are John Williams related. So from Close Encounters, and we've got Jaws. I don't think I've played anything from Star Wars, but there you go. So check out these 3 videos from John Williams now. Do 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 do. Okay, sorry, I just have John Williams on the brain. But while John Williams is probably one of the most well-known composers, I gotta give it up for probably one of the more exciting composers coming out today, and also a female composer, and that would be Hildur Gudnadottir. Sorry, my Icelandic is really terrible. Hildur Gudnadottir. She just recently won the Best Academy Award for Joker for her score for the film Joker. But she is a classically trained cellist, and she has been featured on film scores prior to her creating scores on her own. She had worked with Jóhann Jóhannsson, another Icelandic composer who passed away a few years ago. And she worked with him and provided some of her cello work on films like the first Sicario. She did the sequel. So and she also was featured in the Arrival soundtrack. So she's popped up here and there. So I have a link to her official website, and so this gives you more information about her musical output, how she is a composer in her own right. She has composed for more than just film and television. She's also done art installations and theater work, along with compositions that are just to be, listened to and for her to perform. But one of her latest works is the next article, which goes into how her next major project is, how she is scoring the video game Battlefield 2042. So that's definitely fascinating, and I want you to definitely check that out. I also have a link to a profile on her and an interview with her. So those three links I think are pretty good and pretty important for you to read up on Hildur Gudnadottir. So Joker is probably what she's best known for, and so I have a few videos that pertains to that. We do have her and director of photography Lawrence Shearer discussing the creation of Joker. This is a video that watch it if you want to know more about the process and the creation of the film. But the clips that I really want you to definitely watch is her talking about how she actually composed much of the music prior to the film, and this is not a typical process. There are a few filmmakers that like the composition done prior to the filming. Usually film scoring happens after the film is done, even while the film is already edited. Everything's already there. It just needs that last bit of audio sweetening, which is the music. But how she started writing the music prior to seeing the picture, and this is one of those things where, as I said, some filmmakers want the music created beforehand. So if I was doing Mark Mothersbaugh and the early films of Wes Anderson, Mothersbaugh created the score, some of the pieces for Tannenbaum during production and prior to filming. Much of The Life Aquatic was created prior to filming, and it was used to get the characters into character. So it was actually played back during the actual production. So I definitely want you to read that. But the two scenes that I want you to pay attention from Joker and her score for the film is the bathroom dance. And this is probably one of her the standout sequences of the music in the film. And then the Anarchy in Gotham ending. So these two sequences I think are fantastic, and really showcase her score and how dark it is, but how it matches this character and the feeling of the picture. So check out her video talking about creating the music for the film. So the short clip that's called Joker composer wrote music before seeing the picture, and then the Joker bathroom dance scene and Anarchy in Gotham. So check those out. Yeah, this is one of those films where it is the music definitely contributes a lot, and especially to this fractured mind of of our main character, Joker. So the next piece that I have for you is her contribution to the TV show Chernobyl. And I was watching this prior to recording this video, or at least the first couple episodes. And I can tell you the sound design as a whole and the music disturbed my little kitten Milo. Yeah, Milo was getting unnerved by the sounds of Chernobyl, and when uh, her music came in, it was definitely very haunting. So you have Gudnadottir talking about how she created the score using actual real power plant sounds. And at times, when you listen to her score, especially when you listen to it away from the TV show, uh, it's she uses a lot of sounds that make it sound like you are hearing a power plant or the dosimeter, basically testing the radiation. So that, sound, all of that is in the actual score. So definitely watch that. And then we have a couple pretty haunting scenes that utilizes her score, and how it does kind of mix in this whole concept of its score, but it also has elements of sound design. And this is something that we're finding more and more in some of the more contemporary films composers. So we have the sound of Pripyat video, and then we have the Bridge of Death scene. So I want you to watch those three videos and then come back, and then we'll talk about the final two clips. So watch how she created it. So how she created haunting score from real power plant sounds, then the sound of Pripyat, and then the Chernobyl Bridge of Death scene. So watch those right now. I mean, isn't it devastating? It's a very haunting score that definitely is quite horrifying, but brilliant. So the last two clips is the clip of the evacuation, and we have it with the soundtrack. We've got the score within the soundtrack, within the sounds of the evacuation. And then the second clip, and as you look at it, it looks like the exact same thing, but it's not. So the second clip is just the scene with just the music. And so this is how you can see how this music definitely works within the scene, and how and all of the sounds that are already in the score that that heightens up this tension, anxiety, radiation, fear. It's all in there. So check out these two clips. So if you thought that was a bummer, well, just you wait until we go into the contemporary film scores of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Yes. Trent Reznor is probably best known for being in Nine Inch Nails. And though Atticus Ross is not an original member of Nine Inch Nails, he is part of the group now. And so Trent Reznor is one of well, if you're not familiar with Nine Inch Nails, I guess I should say it is an industrial uh, group, though a lot of times there's been reoccurring members. The one constant has been Trent Reznor since the very beginning. Though at times some of these industrial songs have also gone at times a little bit more ambient, especially with some of the more instrumental tracks, but it still has this industrial rock flavor. And for some of the uh, Nine Inch Nails songs, uh, became, pretty much it kind of made sense when some of the songs started to be featured in some gritty films. And if you've seen the film Seven, which is directed by David Fincher, yes, it features a Nine Inch Nails song in when we finally get to the opening credits. It's one of those films that takes a while before we get into the opening credits. I want to say it like it's 10 or 15 minutes before we get into that. Uh, and I believe we come back to it again. I'll have to go back to that again. Again, this is memory. It's been a little while since I've seen Seven. So, actually, not that long. I know it's in the box. but David Fincher's interest in Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails is something that is going to become a major collaboration between the musician and the film director. But first, one of the first things that Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor was asked to do was produce not only new tracks, but produce the film soundtrack for Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers. And so contributing some new tracks and also doing slightly remixes of the Natural Born Killers soundtrack started to get Trent Reznor, uh, this slowly getting into the world of film, well, not necessarily film scoring, but thinking about music in film. And then the next producing for a soundtrack was for David Lynch in Lost Highway. And I guess I could have pulled those down, but of course I didn't. And I know I'm okay. Also around this time, Nine Inch Nails, I know that, did the score to the video game Quake. So this was something in the 90s that Nine Inch Nails was able to do. And yes, my Nine Inch Nails section is right where I just pulled it out of. So, scores go on the top row, by the way. So, but I'm just kind of hiding everything right now. So Nine Inch Nails so Trent Reznor has already contributed to a video game. But it isn't until 2010 when David Fincher asks Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross to do the score to The Social Network. And I do have The Social Network vinyl. It's just not, for some reason, it's not in the top row. It's in the stuff that to be filed, and I don't even want to show you that. But The Social Network is one of those scores that it isn't an orchestral score by any mean. But it utilizes synthesizers and what seems to be some organic instruments. But I love the description of how at times the score is very cold and it fits the mood of the film. and really also the demeanor of our main character, Mark Zuckerberg, in The Social Network. I think this really matches. So, um, so it really is The Social Network that kind of kicks them off, and they win awards for their first major score for film. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross continue their collaboration with David Fincher, doing Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. They also do Gone Girl. Oops, Gone Girl's over here. and uh, and their current collaboration, or their most recent collaboration with Fincher, was for the film Mank, which is on the screenwriter Mankiewicz, and it takes place during the making of Citizen Kane, which it would have been kind of cool. The iconic composer for Citizen Kane is Bernard Herrmann, but here we've got a little bit of a different take. But Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are not. You'll if you've seen that, you might be like, really, that's Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, because it's more time specific and not as synthesized and cold and dark in its score. Though there are moments of great beauty in much of what they do. And you can definitely, one of my favorite pieces is in Gone Girl, the Sugar Storm. But even the opening, the first time we hear their score in The Social Network, it's haunting but beautiful. It's simple, just a simple little, notes on the piano. It's wonderful. So I have a couple articles on them, the decade most memorable scores. So it goes into detail about the article talks about both Rezner and Ross as they their contribution to scores, not only the work of Fincher, but also how they did the score to Soul. They did the score to Bird Box. They've contributed to quite a few films, even the film Waves and mid-90s, both very indie films. So I have the decade of the most memorable film scores, plus I have a great article it's called Great Article on Rezner and Ross. And so there are some clips in there. So we have the opening of The Social Network. So you can watch it in that article, but I'm going to get back to that in a moment. And then we also have the Sugar Storm piece, which I love this piece. And so definitely listen to it from this article. And then when I go down to The Social Network in a couple minutes, when we see that piece, it's how it's used. It's just lovely. And then there's also some of the pieces from Waves and Soul that are in this article. So so before you check that out, there are two video kind of overviews on Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. So we have the scores from 2010 to 2020. So it's an overview of their score work. And then we have the score auteur, Trent Reznor. And for this one, it really only talks about the three collaborations between Rezner, Ross, and David Fincher. And how they say there's only one other film that they did that wasn't with Fincher, and that was Patriot Day. But since then, as you watched, as you'll see in the previous video, you'll see that they have contributed a lot to many films. So I want you to check out the two articles, the decade and the great article, and then also now watch the scores and then the score auteur. So watch those two videos and check out those two articles now. So as you can see and hear, Rezner and Ross have contributed quite a bit to screen media in terms of composition. So I want to just take a few moments just to look at Social Network. If in just in case you haven't watched the video that was in the one article. But the first 10 minutes of the Social Network starts with the White Stripes. And you think, okay, is this going to be kind of like Zodiac, where, and yeah, Zodiac's another David Fincher film, where it's going to have a bunch of period-specific songs in it? Well, unlike Zodiac, this is really one of the only times that we hear a period-specific song. Most of the film is the score to by Rezner and Ross. And so about the 4-minute mark, maybe a little bit further, is when we get into the actual score. And so listen to how we go from the, sonically, how the White Stripes plays, and then how the opening credits score plays. And we will return to the theme that we hear in the do 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 do. I'm totally doing it terribly, but it comes back, and at times it gets darker. But yeah, so we've got the first 10 minutes, and it's just awesome. So check out the first 10 minutes of Social Network. So already, even though, as I said, this these piano notes become a motif in the film, and we get repeated. It is tonally, a little bit different than definitely what we would hear with John Williams. I have another clip that also utilizes score from the Social Network, and this is the $1 billion scene. So listen to this, and definitely think about, what is the mood of this? What does the music convey in this scene? So yeah, check it out. All right, so I've got two from Gone Girl, and the second clip is the Sugar Storm piece. But the first clip is how to fake a convincing murder, and this is this is pretty much the crux of of the film, and the music plays very much. It's dark. It's definitely not as romantic as the Sugar Store music is. And so that's why I kind of like that I have those next to one another. Also, just how the sugar kiss scene is romantic, but and beautiful. But is there a coldness to it? Well, you decide. So yeah, watch these two scenes, and how it sonically works with the whole film, and how the score plays in the whole film. But also notice these two different ways of conveying emotion and tone is definitely played out with these two scenes. All right, so the final clips that I have pertains to The Watchmen, and I do have all three scores here, but I didn't feel like I should be really glorifying the one image, so we'll just keep this one with like the more of the Rorschach uh, image, and not really spoil you too much, though there's a glare there, and Dr. Manhattan, but The Watchmen. Oh my gosh, the score to this TV show is amazing, and yeah, it's amazing. And this is not the first time that Rezner and Ross uh, contributed music to television, though uh, more of their stuff has been documentary. So the Ken Burns, the Vietnam War, uh, is definitely more of a documentary television series. Same thing as The Fourth Estate, which is a limited series that was on Showtime. The Watchmen, on the other hand, they're definitely able to deal with a darker theme. And now I have the dee 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 dee. Sorry, I'm not doing it any justice, but the reoccurring motif that's in The Watchmen is now stuck in my head. I was debating on pre this lecture, do I dive into Watchmen again, or do I dive in Chernobyl? Either way, the scores are gonna leave a bad taste in my mouth, but at the same time, I really like them. So we have them talking about creating the score and the period, and creating the tone for two different time periods for Watchmen. So we've got Rezner and Ross talking about the creating the score. And then one of the things they talk about is in the Tulsa Race Massacre, the very first scene in the film, in the TV show, in the very first episode, it's the opening, how it goes from the of the time piano scoring the silent film, and it's one of our main characters as a little boy and his mother playing the piano, and then how this changes into this darker score because bad things happen in this scene. It is the it's the Tulsa Race Massacre. It's part of the Tulsa Race Riot, and this is one of those things where really positions the film and many of the things that happens in this sequence, pretty much informs what comes much later. So we have that opening scene, and then we definitely have Rezner and Ross shining, haha, no pun intended, in the interrogation scene with Looking Glass. And so both of these scenes that I have are from the first episode, and it really informs you on what the sound is going to be like, and at least the score is going to sound like in most of the show. Though they do talk about episode 6, and so much of the clips that are available right now with episode 6 are ones that feature songs. So and I don't know how comfortable I am with showing you lynching, so I mean, but if you haven't seen Watchmen, I do highly recommend it, and it does have a very I think this soundtrack works amazingly in this TV show. It works great. So watch Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross talking about making the score uh, to Watchmen, and also the how pressed for time they are. This is one of those things where when you're composing for TV, episodic TV, you don't have the luxury of, oh, I've got months. No, many of these are done. You have to churn them out within a week. So they do talk about that process as well, which I think is very informative in case you didn't know that. And then how their score is used, at least specifically in two scenes in the first episode. So check those out, so you get a little taste of their score for Watchmen. So we've covered a lot, especially since we're covering three composers, all of them composing film and television, and even a little video game work today. There are two other links I have in here. I have a link to the documentary Score, a film music documentary. Now, you're not required to watch this for this week's viewing, though I do highly recommend it, especially if you're really into film music and these composers. And these are those within the industry. Many of the composers are talking about how they score film, their favorite scores, that sort of thing. So this is it's offered for free. It's about an hour and a half. So the link that I have here is through IMDb, so you can watch it directly through the IMDb link. There's a link that says watch it now through IMDb TV. It's also available for free via Tubi and Pluto TV because it's through IMDb. So it's available there. They have commercials, and sometimes their commercials come in at very inopportune moments. But it's fantastic. It's a fantastic score. Score is a fantastic documentary. It's from a few years ago, so it is missing, some composers in here, but it does talk about some of the big composers that you're probably familiar with. So your John Williams is mentioned a lot. Hans Zimmer is interviewed a lot, and he's discussed in great detail. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross appears in the documentary. Danny Elfman is in here a lot. Junkie XL, or Thomas Hokenborg, which I believe we did talk about him a little bit in one of our past weeks. He's featured quite a bit in here. Bear McCreary is in here, Rachel Portman, Thomas Newman, and it ends with a really nice tribute from James Cameron about James Horner, who had passed, and James Horner did the score to Titanic. So, and then I have a very recent article that is on film score Oscar predictions. And so, of current films that are out there right now that could be part of Oscar contention, which artists could, which ones will possibly be up for a nomination. So Johnny Greenwood is in here. He's done a few scores that would qualify for this year. Hans Zimmer, Alexander Desplat for his latest for the French Dispatch by Wes Anderson, and then there are many others. So definitely check out this article. I think it's a lot of fun. So for your discussion for this week, you are going to discuss one of the three composers that we talked about. So you're either going to go into detail on John Williams, you're going to go into detail on Hildur Gudnadottir, or Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. So, and then the second part, who is your favorite screen media composer and why? If one of the three from part one is one of your favorite, do another one. Okay, so you love John Williams, but you also love Hans Zimmer. Okay, there you go, Hans Zimmer. You can talk about him. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, you gotta have a number two. So maybe it's Danny Elfman. So talk about who's your favorite composer and why. So yeah, sorry if you're gonna talk about John Williams. You talk about it in the first part. Second part, you got to pick someone else. So, and this also can be maybe you want to pick someone that is more of a TV composer or more of a video game composer for your part two, because that you love video games. So, or maybe you're really into anime, and so you want to choose something like that. So that is this week on composers, on screen media composers, though most of it again highlights film composers. Again, we've got dabbling in television and in video games from many of them that are mentioned here, and there's some of the links also mention those in video games and television again. Man, I missed opportunity in talking more about Mike Post, but I'm glad I got to talk about it when I talked about TV. How could I miss out on my Law and Order? This is me being all dreamy. Law and Order. Oh, Mike Post. Yes, I've got the Law and Order theme in my head right now. Yeah, I'm in my happy place. All right, yes, your instructor is a little cray-cray. So enjoy this week. Next week we're going to talk about the music supervisor. The person that has to deal with giving the director the sonic the playlist or the that they want for the film. What songs are the best ones suited, and then also dealing with all that stuff like copyright and licensing and all that fun stuff. But so that's what we'll be dealing with next week. So yeah, enjoy. Do 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 dun 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 dun. All right.